Wait, you sold it? Without even telling me? I stood there, clutching my phone, barely able to process what my brother Jake had just said. I was halfway out the door for my usual evening ride when he casually mentioned that my bicycle, the one I'd saved for all summer, was gone.
Sold.
Jake leaned against the kitchen counter, sipping orange juice like it was any other day. You weren't using it that much, he shrugged, and I needed the cash for something important. My legs felt like jelly. Just 2 days ago, I'd ridden that bike down Maple Lane under the sunset, wind in my hair. It wasn't just a bike, it was mine. And now it wasn't. He walked away, humming. I stood frozen. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. But in that moment I decided he was going to regret that. My name is Ava Thompson, and I grew up in a small suburban town in Oregon where everyone knew everyone, and secrets didn't stay buried for long. I'm 17 now, caught in that strange space between childhood and adulthood where you're expected to act grown, but still treated like a kid. That bicycle wasn't just a ride. It was freedom. It was mine. I bought it with my own money. I worked all of last summer babysitting for the Millers across the street, running errands for Miss Donna, our elderly neighbor, and tutoring middle school kids in math just to save up the $600 it cost. I remember the day I got it. It was early September, a Saturday. Bright blue skies and crisp air. Dad drove me out to the bike shop 2 towns over because it was the only place that had the midnight matte teal Trek FX one I'd been obsessing over. I'd printed a photo of it and taped it to my bedroom mirror for months. When the guy at the counter wheeled it out and handed me the keys to the lock, my hands actually trembled. I remember gripping the handlebars, the cool aluminum under my palms, and whispering to myself, "This is mine. I earned this." That was a big deal in our family, because most things didn't belong to me. See, my older brother Jake, he's 19, was the golden child. The football star, the effortlessly charming, smooth-talking, always excused son. While I stayed up late studying, Jake barely cracked a book and still coasted through with charm and favoritism. He was the type to show up late to dinner and still get the biggest piece of pie. My mom, Caroline, always doted on him. She called him her sunshine boy. Dad wasn't as obvious about it, but he always had a soft spot for Jake too. I guess they saw him as the future.
Me?
I was the planner, the rule follower, the girl who washed her own dishes and didn't complain. I kept to myself. But that bike was mine. It was the first thing I truly owned, something I didn't inherit or get as a hand-me-down. It was sleek, smooth, perfect. And every time I rode it, I felt like I was moving forward, away from the noise, from the favoritism, from the quiet ache of feeling like I was always second place. I used to ride it through the pine-lined backroads behind our neighborhood. I'd fill my backpack with sketchbooks and headphones and just disappear for hours. That's how I breathed. That's how I survived. Until Jake took that from me. He sold it. For what? He didn't even say at first. Just muttered something about needing it for something important. But I knew my brother, and nothing he ever needed money for was really important. I remember storming into my room that night, slamming the door so hard my poster of Florence Welch fell off the wall. I sat on my bed, knees pulled up to my chest, fists clenched. But I didn't cry. I rarely did anymore. Instead, I thought about every single time Jake had taken something from me. My last slice of cake, the charger I bought, the hoodie I'd saved up for, the credit for chores I had done. He always got away with it. Always. There was one person who used to see through it all, my Grandma June. She passed away 2 years ago, but she was the only adult who didn't fall for Jake's act. "You've got something Jake doesn't," she once told me, brushing my hair behind my ears when I was 13. "You've got roots. He's all show, leaves in the wind. But you, sweetheart, you build." That line stuck with me. And now, sitting in my room, I clung to it like armor. Jake had taken something that mattered. But I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to whine to Mom and Dad like he always did.
No.
I was going to build something better. The next day, I made a list. Goal: buy Jake's dream bike.
Yeah.
The same one he'd been fawning over for months. The Yamaha R3 in electric blue. I'd overheard him talk about it nonstop. He wanted it for his birthday in March. It cost $5,000. It sounded ridiculous.
Me?
Buying that? But I didn't care. I didn't want it to ride. I wanted it because it would hurt. Not physically, but deeply. To know that I, the quiet, forgotten girl, now owned the one thing he wanted most. And he couldn't take it back. But to do that I needed money. And a plan. So I got to work. First, I doubled my tutoring hours. I started walking dogs around the neighborhood and listed my services on Nextdoor. I cleaned garages, painted fences, edited college essays. I even started selling handmade jewelry on Etsy, bracelets with bike charms and freedom quotes. To my shock, they took off. I made over $600 in a month just from that. I stopped spending. No new clothes, no takeout, no Netflix. I tracked every dollar in a notebook. I didn't tell anyone what I was doing. Not even my best friend Marissa. She noticed I stopped hanging out after school, that my nails were always chipped, that I looked tired. One day, she asked, "Are you okay, Ava?" I looked her in the eyes and said, "I'm building something." She nodded slowly. Like emotionally or literally? Both, I replied. The days turned into weeks. The ache of losing my bike faded and was replaced by something sharper, purpose. I remembered how Jake laughed when I asked why he hadn't even told me before selling it. "It's just a bike, Ava," he'd said with a smirk. "Grow up." Those words haunted me. They echoed every time I took on another job, every time my legs ached from walking instead of riding. But I never wavered. I just kept seeing the Yamaha in my mind, bright blue, parked in our driveway, under my name. Every time Jake talked about it at dinner, I played dumb. He once showed Dad a picture of it and said, "One day, I'm gonna get this and ride all the way to California." I smiled politely. Inside, I burned. I was at $3,700 by late February, just a few weeks before his birthday. And I wasn't stopping. March rolled in with cold rain and bare trees. Jake's birthday was on the 14th, the Thursday. By then, I had done it. I had the full $5,000. Actually, a little over. $5,086 to be exact. I kept the money in a secure account under my name. The final chunk came from a surprise bonus. Miss Donna's daughter in Seattle had seen my Etsy page and ordered 30 custom bracelets for her yoga studio. That commission pushed me over the finish line. I didn't celebrate. Not outwardly. But I remember the moment I saw my account balance hit the target. It was midnight. I was lying in bed, wrapped in 3 layers of blankets, and I just stared at the screen. Then I whispered to myself, "He has no idea." That same night, I opened a new browser tab and typed, "Used Yamaha R3 Electric Blue for sale, Oregon." I found a listing 2 towns over, 2019 model, low mileage, pristine condition. The seller's name was Ben, and he was moving out of state. We exchanged texts. I set up the meeting for Saturday morning. I didn't tell anyone. Not even Marissa. Saturday arrived bitterly cold but dry. I dressed in layers and tied my hair into a low bun. I borrowed Dad's pickup under the excuse of needing to haul supplies for a school project. The meetup spot was a diner parking lot in Albany. Ben was waiting when I got there. Late 20s, honest face. The bike was gorgeous, sleek, shining like blue fire under the morning sun. He raised an eyebrow when he saw me. "You sure you're the buyer?" I smiled. "Every cent is mine." He chuckled.
All right.
Respect. We handled paperwork. I had already arranged for temporary insurance through an app. My heart pounded as I signed the last document. "Want me to help you load it?" he offered. "Please." An hour later, I was driving back home with the bike strapped in the back, my hands gripping the steering wheel, my stomach fluttering with both nerves and satisfaction. When I got home, Jake wasn't there. Neither were Mom and Dad.
Perfect.
I backed the truck into the garage, unloaded the bike carefully, and parked it right where Jake always imagined it, facing outward, like it was ready for a perfect ride. Then I went to my room and waited. That evening, the house was loud. Mom was setting the table for Jake's birthday dinner. Balloons.
Cake.
The usual over-the-top treatment. I helped slice vegetables in the kitchen, not saying a word. Jake came home late. He walked in wearing that signature cocky grin and threw his jacket over a chair. "You're late," Mom scolded lightly. "Got caught up." "Wait till you see what's in the garage," he said, winking. "I've been working on something." I paused. He hadn't seen it yet. He disappeared into the garage, expecting to find his project, a dented, rusted Honda he'd been trying to fix up with Dad for months. I followed silently. A second later, I heard it. "What the?" He was frozen, staring. The Yamaha R3 was gleaming like a gem under the overhead light. "Who the hell brought this here?" he demanded. I stepped forward and calmly said, "I did." His head snapped around. "You? You can't even ride. What is this?" I reached into my jacket and pulled out a small manila envelope. Slowly, I handed it to him. "Open it." He tore it open like it might explode. Inside were the title papers. My name at the top. The sale date. The insurance certificate. He stared at it like it was written in a different language. This is yours?" Every dollar came from my own work. No help. No handouts. I stepped forward, calm as a glacier. "You sold my bicycle. I built back something better." "You bought it just to spite me?" he snapped, eyes blazing. "No," I said, voice even. "I bought it because you thought you could take anything from me without consequences." For a second, there was silence. He looked between me and the bike like he couldn't compute the image. Then he let out a bitter laugh. "Okay. Funny. You got your little revenge moment. Now hand me the keys." I tilted my head.
No.
His nostrils flared. "You don't even ride. You don't deserve that bike." I raised an eyebrow. "Oh, so now you care about deserving things?" He lunged forward. "Come on, Ava. Seriously. This is messed up. I didn't know that stupid bike meant that much to you." "It was mine, Jake." "You didn't have to know how much. It wasn't yours to touch." "I was going to pay you back." "No, you weren't. You never do." He stepped back, rubbing his hands through his hair, pacing like a lion trapped in a cage. "You've been planning this? The whole time?" I didn't answer, because he already knew. That night at dinner, Jake barely touched his cake. Mom and Dad were confused but didn't ask questions. Jake wasn't ready to explain. But Marissa noticed. She pulled me aside after school a few days later and asked why Jake was so moody. I finally told her the truth. Her jaw dropped. "You bought his dream bike?"
Yep.
"That's the coldest, most boss move I've ever seen." "Thanks. But what are you going to do with it?" I smiled. Wait. Because the story wasn't over yet. The twist had just landed. The storm was still coming. The Yamaha stayed in the garage untouched. For 3 days, Jake avoided eye contact with me, with the bike, with anything that reminded him of the decision I'd made. But silence didn't mean peace. It meant pressure. And pressure always explodes. It started one evening at dinner. Dad asked, "So, Jake, what happened to the Honda? Thought you were planning to fix it up." Jake mumbled, "Yeah, got delayed." Then he glared at me, like I'd poisoned his birthday cake. I kept chewing my broccoli. Later that night, as I was finishing homework, Jake stormed into my room uninvited. "Let's talk," he snapped. I didn't even look up. "About what?" "You don't even ride, Ava. That bike is sitting there like a trophy. It's wasted on you." I set my pencil down slowly. "You don't get to decide what's wasted on me. Just like I didn't get to decide when you sold my bike." He threw his hands up. "That was different."
Why?
"Because it was mine and not yours." He stepped closer.
Look.
"I screwed up."
Fine.
"But this is extreme. I told you I was gonna pay you back." I turned in my chair. "You never once said those words until after you got caught. You only regret it because now you lost something you wanted." He stared at me for a long moment, then tried another tactic. "Come on. This is me, Ava. Your brother. We used to share everything." I raised an eyebrow.
No, Jake.
"You took everything. There's a difference." That night marked a shift. He wasn't just angry anymore. He was desperate. He tried manipulation. He went to Dad the next morning and said he thought it was unfair that I was allowed to buy a motorcycle when she can't even ride it. Dad brought it up at breakfast, looking concerned. Ava, what's going on with the bike? Are you planning to take lessons? Maybe, I said casually. Maybe I just like owning things that are mine. Mom interjected. It's a bit dangerous, don't you think? So is trusting someone with your belongings and finding out they sold them behind your back. The table went quiet. Jake shoved his chair back and stormed off. Later that week, Jake tried guilt. He came into the garage while I was dusting the bike. He leaned against the doorframe, quiet for once. I know I'm not perfect, he said. I've messed up.
A lot.
But this feels like a wedge. Like you're trying to make me feel small. I looked at him, then looked away. Jake, I didn't make you feel small. You did that all on your own. He nodded, face tight. Okay.
So what now?
You punish me forever. No, I said. I just stopped letting you take from me. Things spiraled after that. He stopped talking to me entirely. Cold shoulder at the dinner table. Petty remarks behind my back. One day, I heard him on the phone with his best friend Cody, saying, she's acting like some revenge queen. I swear if I wanted to, I'd just take the keys and ride off. She can't stop me. That was the final straw. I installed a GPS tracker under the seat, hid the ignition kill switch in the garage, changed the lock code. The title and insurance were fully in my name. If he tried anything, I'd know. But I wasn't trying to provoke him. I just didn't trust him. Not anymore. Marissa was the first one to say what I was thinking. You know, she said as we walked home one day, I think Jake's mad because, for the first time, you're not the quiet little sister he can push around. I think you're right. He can't handle the fact that you outplayed him. I smiled. And I didn't even raise my voice. But Jake wasn't done. 2 weeks later, on a Sunday morning, I found the garage door open. My heart dropped. I ran out barefoot. The Yamaha was gone. I stood there for a full 5 seconds. No breath. Just cold air. Then I turned, walked inside, grabbed my phone, and opened the tracking app. Last location, gas station off Route 7. He'd stolen it. Dad found me putting my shoes on. What's going on? Jake took the bike. His eyes widened. Are you sure? I showed him the tracker. He's 5 miles out.
I didn't yell.
I didn't cry. I got in the car. When I pulled into the gas station, I spotted the bike immediately. Parked by pump 3. Jake was leaning against it, drinking a soda. I parked, got out, and walked straight up.
He saw me.
Relax, he said. I just wanted to take it for a spin. You weren't even using it. I pulled out my phone and hit a button. Ignition disabled. The smile dropped from his face. What did you do? I protected what's mine. You're insane, he barked.
No.
I'm done being used. That evening was chaos. Dad was furious. Mom kept trying to smooth things over. But I was calm. For the first time, I had the upper hand and I wasn't giving it back. You stole from her again, Dad said to Jake. This isn't a prank. It's a crime. Jake stormed upstairs. I didn't follow. Instead, I stayed downstairs and told my parents the full story. The summer jobs. The saving. The tracker. The title. Mom's eyes welled with tears. Why didn't you tell us? Because you never listen when it's about Jake. They didn't have a response. The next day, Jake knocked on my door. I opened it slowly. He looked like he hadn't slept. I messed up. Again. I know. I thought I could take it for a ride, and you wouldn't notice. You knew I'd notice. He didn't argue. So what now? You keep holding it over my head? No, I said. I'm not interested in holding anything over you. Then sell it to me.
No.
He laughed bitterly. Why not? Because you don't value things unless they cost you something. He looked away. You're right. I waited. Finally, he said, I want to earn it. Not just take it. Not steal. Not guilt. I want to earn it. That was the first time I saw something real in his eyes. Not ego. Not spite. Just shame.
and a desire to change.
I nodded. Then prove it. The moment the transaction went through and the keys were in my hand, I stood next to the glossy, pearl-black Ducati that Jake had dreamed of since he was 16. It wasn't just a bike, it was his fantasy.
And now?
It was mine. I could barely hold back my grin when I pulled into the driveway that afternoon. I made sure the engine roared extra loud as I parked it in the center of the garage, his favorite spot. Jake ran out, eyes widening like a kid on Christmas morning. He froze mid-step when he saw me casually dismounting the bike, helmet under my arm, smirking like a villain in a teen drama.
No.
Freaking way, he muttered, approaching it with reverence. Where did you get this? Is that the limited edition Panigale? It is, I said, spinning the key around my finger. Got it secondhand. Still practically new. He looked up, blinking. Wait, this is my dream bike. You don't even ride sport bikes. What are you doing with this? I let the silence linger for a second. You remember my bicycle? He stopped cold. The one I sold? I nodded, casually walking past him.
Yeah,
that one. You can't be serious, he said, panic rising in his voice. You bought this just to get back at me? I shrugged, tossing the helmet onto the counter like it was no big deal. Not exactly. I bought it because I could. He stared at me, trying to compute. But you don't even like motorcycles like this. You're all about those vintage beach cruisers and eco-friendly crap. I smiled sweetly. Funny how people change when they're betrayed. His mouth opened, but nothing came out. I leaned in. You took something that mattered to me.
You didn't ask.
You didn't care. You saw what you wanted and decided my feelings weren't as important as your convenience. So now I'm doing the same. Jake ran a hand through his hair, pacing now. Okay, fine. It was a jerk move. I get it. But come on, Claire. That bike, it's the bike. I've had it saved in my phone's lock screen for years. I raised an eyebrow. And my bicycle was on my vision board since middle school.
He stopped pacing.
Okay, what do you want? An apology?
I'm sorry. There.
I said it. You've made your point. I don't want an apology, I said. I want you to feel what it's like to want something so bad, only to watch someone else treat it like an accessory. I grabbed my canvas tote and headed toward the door. Oh, I added, turning back. You might want to move your Honda. I need the good spot for my bike now. Jake just stood there, completely stunned, watching as the sister he used to mock for being too soft walked away like a boss. That night, I posted a selfie on Instagram next to the Ducati with the caption, "Manifestation comes full circle. Sparkles fire hashtag new ride hashtag sibling lessons." Jake saw it. I know because he unfollowed me that same night. But the next morning, he was waiting for me in the garage. I've been thinking, he said quietly, hands in his hoodie pocket. I really messed up. I looked at him, waiting. I was selfish. I took advantage of you because I didn't think you'd fight back. But you proved me wrong. And I deserved it. It wasn't much, but it was honest. Jake wasn't the type to hand out humility freely. You're growing, I said with a wink. You might make a decent human being after all. He let out a weak chuckle. So what happens now? I paused, then tossed the keys toward him, but he didn't catch them. He looked confused. Wait, really? I shook my head.
No.
I just wanted to see if you'd reach for something that wasn't yours again. He rolled his eyes but smiled. You're cruel. Just resourceful, I replied. We both laughed. And for the first time in a while, I saw the older brother I used to admire. Maybe one day, I'd let him ride it. But not today. 3 weeks passed. Jake still didn't know what I was planning, but I waited. I bided my time like a hunter waiting for the perfect shot. Because sometimes revenge isn't loud. Sometimes it's methodical. I'd been watching his face closely every morning when he walked to school. He passed a gleaming black and gold Ducati Panigale V4 in our neighbor's driveway, the dream bike he'd been obsessing over for months. He'd downloaded wallpapers of it, followed motorcycle influencers who rode it, talked about it nonstop. And now, I had just enough money for my freelance web projects, birthday savings, and a small bonus from Mrs. Rosenfield for helping her digitize her entire knitting blog. Jake came into my room one Friday, grinning like he'd just won the lottery. "You're not gonna believe this," he said. "Mr. Tiller down the street? He's selling his Panigale." I played dumb. "Seriously? That thing's like super expensive, right?" "Normally, yeah, but he's leaving town, and he wants it off his hands fast. He's letting it go for $8,000. That's literally half what it's worth." I could see the hunger in his eyes. He was already counting imaginary miles in his head. But there was one problem. Jake had barely saved up $5,000. That night, I walked over to Mr. Tiller's house. He knew me. I'd babysat his golden retriever when his wife was in the hospital last year. $8,000, he repeated, sipping coffee on his porch. "I'd prefer to sell it to someone responsible, not just some punk kid who's gonna wreck it showing off." I smiled. "What if I'm not the one who wants to show off?" He chuckled. "You want to buy it?" I handed over the full cash. "Absolutely. But I'd like to ask a favor." I explained everything, Jake selling my bike without telling me, the way he brushed it off, and how I wanted to teach him a gentle lesson about respect. Tiller laughed so hard, he nearly spilled his coffee. "You're cold." "I like it." He agreed to let me keep the bike in his garage for now. "You can even pick the day we pretend it's going up for grabs," he winked. 2 days later, I accidentally left the garage door open after school and made sure Jake overheard me talking to Tiller. "Oh, yeah," I said loudly, holding my phone. "She's coming by Saturday morning to finalize the paperwork for the Ducati." Jake's jaw dropped. "Wait, who?" I hung up and shrugged. "Some girl from Eastwood. Guess she's got the money." Jake's face turned pale. "But I thought he hadn't sold it yet." "He is now," I said with a soft smirk. "Guess you waited too long." That night, he sulked in his room like a dog that just got its toy taken away. Saturday morning arrived. Jake left early, probably to plead with Tiller. He had no idea what was waiting for him. When I walked down the street, the bike was out front, polished and shining like a diamond under the sun. Tiller handed me the keys, and I swung a leg over the Ducati like I'd been doing it for years. Jake stepped out from the garage, stunned. "You?" I looked him in the eye. "Me." "You bought it? You mean after you sold my bike without asking?" I pulled on the helmet and secured the strap.
Yeah.
I figured it was time for an upgrade. He stood there speechless as the engine roared to life under me. "Don't worry," I shouted over the rumble. "I'll let you borrow it never." Then I took off down the street, wind hitting my jacket, the horizon wide open. That wasn't just sweet revenge. That was justice. Jake's expression froze the moment he stepped into the garage and saw it. His eyes locked onto the glistening red and black Ducati parked in the center like a showpiece, the LED lights subtly illuminating its polished frame. His mouth dropped open. Is that mine?" he asked, eyes wide with disbelief. I stood by the workbench, arms crossed, waiting. I corrected, raising an eyebrow. "You know before I bought it." Jake walked up to the bike like it was holy. His fingers grazed the seat.
No way.
"This is the exact model I've been saving for." I nodded slowly.
Yeah.
"The exact one on your Pinterest board. The one you talk about every time we pass a bike dealership." I paused. "And guess what? I bought it yesterday. Full payment."
Cash.
He spun around to face me. "With what money?" "I got a little help from a friend," I said vaguely. "And remember that art scholarship I wasn't sure about applying for?" His brows knitted. "You got it." I smiled. "Full ride. I don't need to save for college anymore." So I decided to buy something fun. Jake looked flustered, almost panicked. "But you don't even ride motorcycles, Ava. That's not even safe." "Oh, don't worry," I said smoothly, walking past him and patting the seat. "I already signed up for lessons. In fact, my first class is this weekend." His jaw clenched. "So you're telling me you bought my dream bike out of spite?" I leaned against the frame and shrugged. "Nope. I bought a dream bike. Just so happened to be yours." Jake was speechless. The silence hung thick between us. He didn't know whether to yell or beg. I could see it all flicker across his face, the rage, the disbelief, the betrayal. And then he broke. Okay, Ava. I messed up. I shouldn't have sold your bike. I didn't think you'd care that much. I tilted my head. You didn't think? That's your excuse. He sighed, rubbing his face. Look, I just needed money for a down payment on a used scooter. Something to get me around before I could afford this. He motioned toward the Ducati. But I didn't think you'd go this far. You didn't think I'd stand up for myself, I corrected. You thought I'd just take it. Like I always do. He looked down, guilty. Yeah, I guess I did. I walked to the garage door and pressed the remote. It began to lift slowly, light pouring in. Well, now you know better. Jake nodded slowly. So, you're not going to let me ride it? I smirked. I'll let you sit on it. That's more than you gave me. He laughed softly, defeated. Touché. As he stepped back from the bike, I saw something change in his eyes. Not just respect, but a realization that his little sister wasn't so little anymore. And me? I felt empowered. Not just because I got even, but because I finally chose me. A week later, Jake knocked on my bedroom door with something in his hand. When I opened it, he stood there sheepishly holding a box wrapped in newspaper, like he didn't know whether he was delivering a gift or a confession. I owe you more than just an apology, he said. So, I made this. I took the box, eyebrows raised. Inside was a small wooden model of a bicycle, hand-carved, carefully painted, and surprisingly detailed. It was a replica of my old teal cruiser, right down to the little bell on the handlebar. I know I can't get your real bike back, he said, but I figured I could at least try to make up for what I ruined. I stared at it for a second, warmth blooming in my chest. Did you make this yourself? He nodded. Took me 3 nights. Had to borrow tools from Grandpa. He thinks I should take up woodworking. I smiled despite myself. He's not wrong. There was an awkward pause, then he added, I really am sorry, Ava. I didn't realize how much I took you for granted. You've always let things go. I just assumed you always would. I looked at him carefully, then walked to my shelf and placed the wooden bicycle front and center. Well, consider this your reminder, I said, glancing over my shoulder. I'm not invisible, and I'm done being your emotional doormat. He gave a sheepish smile. Noted. Loud and clear. Later that day, I wheeled the Ducati out of the garage for my first riding lesson. Jake followed, carrying my helmet and gloves like an assistant. You nervous? He asked. A little, I admitted, but more excited. He grinned. You're gonna crush it. And hey, if you ever want to go riding together someday. I gave him a sideways glance. Only if you promise not to sell my bike while I'm asleep. He laughed. Deal. As I revved the engine and rolled into the sunlight, something shifted between us. Not just the balance of power, but the shape of our bond. We weren't just siblings anymore. We were equals. He finally saw me, and I finally stood up. The ride ahead was mine.